What's up, world?
I just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
They
Insert here.
Yo.
It's a terrible game. Bottom line. It's terrible in every way. Graphically, it's terrible. Gameplay is terrible. It's just terrible.
Angry Nick mad.
That game sucked, and it's gonna suck no matter how many revisions they make, and it just sucked even more because they put a Kinect with it.
Angry Nick mad. Or if there's violence, I'll just laugh and enjoy the fun.
Kaz Hazari.
Kaz Harai.
They just kind of got tired of Angry Nick on the first one and say, I'm going to pass.
Oh, yeah, so I do. Precisely.
No.
I
No.
do all my work.
No.
And
You guys are
unfortunately,
so
I don't.
cute.
Oh, thank you. I try.
I mean, let's face it, Mario and to a lesser extent Zelda is what carries Nintendo at this point.
Always be radical.
I love you, little podcast. You're the bestest thing ever.
For the promise of a new Super Smash Bros. And the Zelda game, yes.
You will not find a better story presented in any other game genre, in my personal opinion. Like, JRPGs have that. They have that story.
That's what the entire game felt like. Oh my god, I want to bang my head into a wall.
It's a podcast. Can someone remind me? I thought it was a video game podcast.
You're listening to the Game Source Podcast.
Hello and welcome. It's Game Source Podcast number 138. It's going to be sort of a special edition as we're recording this on hopefully what will be multiple occasions. My name is Gerald, better known as Yes, Elvis Lives, and I'm here today with the man, the myth, the legend himself, the director of it has to be one of the best films, most highly rated films of this year. It's a documentary, Nintendo Quest, which you can see not only on Vimeo with bonus.
Sorry, my dog is going nuts. I apologize.
Does your dog disagree with the critiques for Nintendo Quest?
I don't know what he's up to. Something's afoot. I can tell you that much.
I was going to say because that helps feed his gets him food is Nintendo Quest. So.
Good old George he's anxious to jump in on the discussion and debate about Star Wars. I think that's what's going on with him.
Okay, fair enough. It's Nintendo Quest, which you can get on Vimeo with bonus features. Plus, you can also get it on iTunes and buy the DVD on Amazon.com as well. His name is Rob McCallum, and it's a great pleasure to have you on the show again, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little under the weather, so I do apologize if I don't sound 100% and if I occasionally may have to blow my nose. But I'm here for the challenge, for the sake of representing thoughts and opinions on Star Wars, The Force Awakens.
Fair enough. And I know our good friend Jay, your best friend Jay, my good friend as well, the master of everything on the podcast called Galaxy Far, Far Away, has been very opinionated as far as his thoughts on the movie itself. And quite frankly, we're going to have discussion today on Star Wars: The Force Awakens and also as well our Game of the Year thoughts. So if you don't want to hear either, there's going to be lots of spoilers. So just as just a preface on all the occasions this week, we're going to be talking Star Wars and Game of the Year stuff. So if you don't want to, anything to persuade you on that, might want to hit the shut off button right now. But
so we're going full on. Is that what you're saying? Full on? We're going 100% spoilers.
100% spoilers. I think if you're going to go in, you're going to go in all the way. I mean, there's already spoiler casts out there. There's already numerous articles that have spoilers.
Sure.
So I think it is about time that we discuss it. It's just it's one of the largest domestic opening here in the United States as far as concerned. Yes, for now. And one of the largest openings of all time, number 2, I believe, behind Jurassic World, with over 500 million. So it definitely warrants a great bit of discussion indeed. But before I want to get into that, I also want to talk your Gamercast and how people can get a hold of that as far as Podomatic is concerned. Your great show, which you dedicate to everything gaming. And also how they can become a Patreon subscriber and be able to get the great things that are even more available to them on Gamercast. With you, Jay, and Glenn. Who are great guys.
The easiest way, honestly, is just go to patreon.com/gamercast. Patreon is obviously a subscription-based site, but for only $1 a month, you get a 20-minute extra long episode, usually on average per week. We're now doing 5 episodes a month, thanks to milestones that we hit on Patreon. There is a free version that you can search on iTunes. There are links available on NintendoQuest.com. We do have a Facebook page, facebook.com/GamercastNation. We are all over the place. NintendoQuest.com is really the kind of major hub, and you will find links to it there. But really, do yourself a favor, spend $1 a month, patreon.com/GamerCast. And we just recorded our New Year's Eve episode last night. And there's going to be an exclusive episode just for Patreon listeners where we talk about what the future of Nintendo Quest is and get very specific with sequel ideas. So it's now is the time to plunk down $1 and be part of the in crowd.
Fair enough. And I know I've been persuaded by the dark side to do that for quite some time. I want next time I want to see you. I have a well, I don't have a $12 bill, but I have a $20 bill that I've been waiting to give you. I wanted to do it in face to face because I love photo ops and I love to post ads on Facebook after that. But I might have to just go ahead and just go do it over the good old fashioned credit card plastic type deal because I do want to hear what the future lies for Nintendo Quest. Again, it is one of the highest rated films of this year. That's no BS. No bull. It is, if you look at all the different, and you have a listing on NintendoQuest.com of all the reviews, including our own here at GameSource, as far as that's concerned. All the different entities and outlets that have reviewed your film. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're close to like 30, and then it's just too much for the site to handle to constantly keep posting updates. And for whatever isn't in print, there's audio versions out there floating around with just tons of different people, like a number of different sources and outlets and podcast groups that have talked to Jay and I. So there's no shortage of information to find on the film and what people think about it. So check it out. It's another fun ride. It does divide some people here and there too. So it's kind of interesting that we talk about that as we get into Star Wars, which I think by nature is going to divide people.
That's true. That's true indeed. And I know you and I discussed that a little bit last night as far as it's concerned. It's just, but it is in my opinion, a well-made film. Kudos to you and Jay on all your things that you did this year as far as the Power Tour is concerned, taking it to the streets and to the fans out there and all the theaters all across this country. In fact, abroad, you went to Canada and you showed it off as well in the UK. And you still have plans to show it even more, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we just literally this week today we just announced the Toronto screening is official. It's on Wednesday, January 20th at 8 p.m. at the Royal Theatre. And we have a screening on the 17th in Kingston, Ontario. So those two towns are only 2 hours apart. And the Kingston screening, it's all for charity in conjunction with Extra Life. We're not making a penny off it. I think the theater's, waiving the rental fee, I believe. We've almost sold out the small theater, and we're trying to get to the big theater. And we just want to basically give something a little back to the community and everybody out there via Extra Life. And the Toronto screening has just been something that everybody has been asking for. And because of the cost of doing things in Toronto, it was really hard for us to do it without sacrificing 2 or 3 other screenings. So we thought it would be more beneficial to the film to roll it out across those 3 other cities versus the one city in Toronto, especially when we already had our London screening. So in the end, it's all working out, and it's cool to see that there is still a request for Nintendo Quest to be screened theatrically. It's a community film, and that's the way it should be seen. It's the best way to experience it.
Awesome. And one quick question on that, now that seems to be the going thing these days. When the sequel to Nintendo Quest is made and is ready to appear, are you going to be running it in conjunction with the original Nintendo Quest, back to back for that massive marathon showing?
That really depends on the format of the sequel.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
The follow-up projects range in a bunch of different fashions. When you become a Patreon backer, you will hear us discuss that exact question. What form should the sequel take, if there is a sequel, and why should it be that form, and why?
Fair enough. Or even a Rob McCallum Film Fest with all your various projects.
You just stop it right now.
Fair enough.
Just stop it.
Well, just trying to help you out there as far as get those plugs in. I learned for the best when it comes
there
to
you go.
advertising one's
Yeah.
projects. But
I've created a monster.
this is true. This is true. Just as I have with your streaming capabilities. But be that as it may, the reason why we're here mainly is, like I said, Star Wars: The Force Awakens came out to a huge audience. It met, I think, what most people would say, most financial as far as predictions and what analysts had said that the movie was going to do. Pretty much hit right around the number. Your thoughts initially when you were sitting down in the theater to watch Star Wars: The Force Awakens?
I can't believe the number of trailers that are preceding this film. I think there was like 8, which was like astronomical. And then it was really strange not to have the 20th Century Fox fanfare lead into the Lucasfilm logo. That was very strange for me. It was just like the Lucasfilm Limited thing came up, and it still hadn't hit me that I'm watching a new Star Wars. And I still feel like I haven't seen a new Star Wars film. And that's not a dig, although you could interpret it that if you really want to nitpick on the language. I guess it really hasn't hit me. I never really bought into the hype because there was so much going on, and I don't watch a lot of TV, so I never saw like any of the TV spots. Going into it, I'd really only seen the trailers and the teasers they released, and that was enough. I'm just too busy to kind of get swayed by all the marketing. So I kind of sat down with medium expectations, I would say.
Fair enough. And I agree with you on that, but you got to remember, obviously, as well, it's a financial decision by running all these trailers beforehand.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Even with so far as Microsoft and Sony with PlayStation and Xbox running Halo 5 and Uncharted videos at selected theaters as well. It's a major financial decision. They want to capture that audience. And it just really if that's to warning, if you haven't seen the movie yet and you were watching this as far as spoilers are concerned, and you really want to spoil it for you, we're going to spoil it for you. I mean, that there's a whole lot of trailers before the film, indeed. Yeah, and well, on that note, as far as it's concerned, because I noticed as well, and I have a review that I posted over the weekend on our In Case You Missed It page at yourgamesource.com. I also noted the tremendous amount of callbacks to the film as far as it's concerned. And sometimes, and even though I rated it very strongly overall, I just wanted to say that I think there was a lot of callbacks to the point where it was a little overdone. And your thoughts, Rob, on the fact that maybe it might have been a little bit too much nostalgia thrown in there?
That's hard to say because that's what they've really marketed this as, right? So they've said, we're going back to the original cast, essentially continuing that story that was left 30 years ago. So how much is not enough and how much is too much for the sake of story? There has to be a good dose in there if we're continuing the story. But at what level does it become fan service versus plot purpose? You know what I mean? So it's hard. There were some really nice lines in there, like, early on, Max von Sydow's character, speaks of Princess Leia, or General Leia, as now she's called, and he says, "She'll always be royalty to me." That was a nice, succinct line without putting it too much on the nose, and it really confirms that she isn't a princess anymore, which is a little bit of a fanboy debate that I've had with Jay. I said she ceased to become a princess. She was never born into royalty to begin with. The second Alderaan was destroyed, she was no longer royalty, so... It's a harsh approach, but so be it.
I would love to hear that argument.
But technically, I guess, you could look at her as a descendant as the Queen of Naboo as well, even though it's an elected position, and so by that rationale, Luke's a prince.
Fair enough. Yes. When you look at it in that context, yeah, you're right on that. But yes, we now, as far as our viewers on Twitch, we are doing well. Thanks for asking. And then I guess the big plot, as far as is concerned, is Han Solo, my favorite character from the series. He does play a prominent role in the actual movie as well. And to what point does he play, as far as it's concerned? Was he too much in the film for your taste, Rob, or was he in there right amount before his
not enough
untimely demise?
Not enough. And I don't think it has to do with lines or page count. I think it's the way that the story is framed. If I'm going to have any one major knock on The Force Awakens, it's the way in which the story unfolds and the way in which it's presented to us. Episodes 4, 5, and 6, and even 1, 2, and 3 to an extent, are framed from the characters that we know, or at least extend from the 4, 5, and 6 trilogy in the way that Obi-Wan kind of leads the story in the prequels with Anakin. So to start episodes 7, 8, and 9 and basically have it framed from characters we've never met, I think is a huge mistake. I understand why Disney's doing it for building these characters up and branding and making them important. But as fans know, fans of Star Wars especially love the background characters. They love the minor roles. That's why Boba Fett has gained such popularity, because he's just kind of badass in the background. I thought it would have been a much better decision to introduce Finn and Rey, and even Poe to a lesser degree, as characters that emerge and slowly take the limelight in this new trilogy, rather than being thrust in our face, and then to allow the old guard again to have that kind of crossfade or that opposite gradient where we start with them and the baton is slowly handed off. Can you imagine how great The Force Awakens would have been if we would have basically started on a scene with Han and Chewie in that freighter, and they're basically in that situation where Han is stuck between a rock and a hard place? Yes. How great would it have been? Which is some of the stars, hear me say over and over again on this podcast.
With some of the stars of one of my favorite movies of this modern era, The Raid Redemption, which I really appreciated them being in the film as well. And shout out right away, real quick, to Bearable 2as119 for following us. I just wanted to appreciate it, and we're actually going to get a few more Twitch followers in here. We appreciate you watching. Again, we are dealing with Star Wars The Force Awakens spoilers, and a little bit later on, some of our Game of the Year thoughts for Wii U, 3DS, and overall. So we appreciate you joining us here on the Game Source podcast. Like I said, Han Solo is my favorite character, and as much of him on the film, I guess, as possible is always a good thing, because I think he carries the film quite a bit when he's on. His untimely demise was very heart-wrenching for me.
It's a waste. I'm just going to come out and say it's a waste to kill Han at this point. I think that it makes sense in a story world, and I think that there are motivations there for him to die, and die at the hands of Kylo Ren or Ben Solo, depending on your point of view of who that character is. But I think it's a waste to introduce Han at maybe the lowest point of his life and basically be cast away, when there could have been so much more dynamic play between him and Leia, who is also equally kind of at a low point. Nobody believes Leia and the Resistance for what they think the First Order is. They've been cast aside to essentially start the Rebel Alliance again on their own. She's seen as a bit of a warmonger. Nobody trusts her. She looks frail and unsure of any kind of confidence. All she knows is that she had a good time in the past, and she doesn't know what happened to it. So much like the stars of the old trilogy, she feels like she's being replaced by this up-and-coming generation, and she doesn't know how to handle it. So it's just quite a shame that they didn't want to explore more of that dynamic and have, that arc take place between at least Han and Leia. And the fact that Luke and Han will never see each other again is pretty crippling, especially when you hear, Han talk about Luke. And I think probably that shot at the end with Luke while he's in tears is probably because he sensed that Han passed away. I think that's a big part of it, on top of all the other psychological issues that Luke is going through as a nutty old hermit on an island.
And you and I both know, and see, reading interviews over the years, that Han does not really have an affinity for this character.
Harrison Ford has asked that Han died in Jedi.
Yes, he petitioned. Yeah. So, and it's actually not my favorite of all the Harrison Ford characters. For I love Decker from Blade Runner the most, and Indiana Jones always has a unique charm as well. Which one is your favorite Harrison Ford character?
Indiana Jones by far, but then Han Solo, and between the two, it's a razor thin margin. To be honest, honestly, The Force Awakens lowers Han Solo's appeal to me a little bit, just because of all of the potential of exploring that character that there could have been.
Well, you could see it coming, from his interviews where he was saying the movie's so wonderful and he was appearing so much as far as in interviews and whatnot.
Yeah, it was almost like this is the last time I'll ever have to do this ever again.
Fair enough. And what were your thoughts on as far as Princess Leia and her
General Leia?
Yeah, General Leia and her lack of involvement in the movie as a whole.
Again, there could have been tons of involvement. It's the way in which they told the story. They could have framed it completely different. Imagine what the cameras would have been pointing at as the Resistance was alerted to, the BB-8 droid being on this other planet as they, basically mobilize their X-wings and take off and go after it. And you could have just told the story from her perspective and Han's perspective, and it would have been such a more powerful film. So the fact that they chose to limit Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford's actions is really disappointing to me. At least have one film where these guys are the lead and they hand it off either halfway through this film or near the end, and then let episode 8 kind of take its course. It really feels like Disney is taking over from George Lucas.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and read into that allegory and say that's exactly what this feels like. Oh, we have another, whole set of people that want to play in this universe. And that's exactly what this feels like to me. And don't get me wrong, I don't think the film is bad. As a filmmaker and as someone like yourself, you instantly spot all these options for potential, and whether we've considered the domino effect of them or not, it's hard to say, but there's just some that are so glaring. I would say that officially I feel like it feels much more like a TV show than it does a film. And maybe that's because we've been conditioned that way in the last 10 years to kind of view content in a different way. It doesn't feel like a big Star Wars event movie as much as it feels like episode 1 of a series called Star Wars, which is somewhat similar to Game of Thrones in space. That's sort of tied to something that was, made 40 years ago that has sort of been revived now. It just has a different vibe. I think people that are slamming The Force Awakens will have a better appreciation for it when episode 8 comes out, and episode 9 likewise, because that story will expand. And by virtue of there being more of the pieces out there, people will like it more.
Your thoughts on Luke as far as his he was the focus of the actual movie as a whole, and the search from the First Order as far as to find him, between the Resistance and the First Order to find him, but yet he only appears a very small amount in the movie at the end. Okay to save him for future episodes, or would you like to see him utilized more in the film?
Luke Skywalker? I thought he was a myth. How can he be a myth if he's only been missing for like 30 years, if that? 30 years! We can think back to 30 years ago in our life, so why is it so hard for people to do that in a galaxy far, far away? That's a weird kind of situation for me. And maybe for someone like Ray, who might be on the polar opposite end of the galaxy, and, trickles of this guy named Luke Skywalker who helped destroy the Death Star and overthrow the Empire. It feels like myth or legend. And maybe I'm nitpicking too much, but this gets to my other point of the film, where it feels like they wanted more time to pass between the events of Jedi at some times and less at other points to suit other agendas. Honestly, I would have ended the film with the Falcon taking off from wherever the Resistance is and cut to the credits without having them discover Luke. And for them to do essentially Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where the Nazis and Indy are both racing to the Holy Grail because they each have a different portion of the map and the clues to get there. It feels like such a waste now that the map is put together to get there in 5 minutes, when that could have been more of an entire film. The actual race to get to Luke. Versus just an ongoing chase movie where Finn and Rey are trying to get away and they're constantly followed and tracked by the First Order, only to essentially go to where the First Order is, housed. And the Death Star. Oh, wait, that's not a Death Star. Here's a graphic that shows you that this is not a Death Star.
Absolutely. And one again, thanks for everyone who's joining us. Thanks also as well. I want to give a shout out to White Paw 9 for actually hosting on his channel our podcast. We've got a number of viewers now for us. This is the Game Source Podcast, number 138. We're touching on Star Wars The Force Awakens spoilers, and also as well later on some Game of the Year thoughts. We're here with the director of Nintendo Quest, which you can get available today on Vimeo, Amazon, and iTunes. It's Rob McCallum, along with me, Gerald, better known as Yes, Elvis Lives. Two of the things that I had issues with, although, like I said, overall, on our site at yourgamesource.com, on the In Case You Missed a page, I rated it very strongly. It's a lot of fun. was the plot deriving from the original Star Wars as far as it's concerned, and being very closely associated to that. I thought it was a little bit too much so as far as it's concerned. I thought it lacked some originality. I wanted it to go off the movie to go off in a little bit different direction as far as it's concerned in order to get where it needed to go. Your thoughts on that?
It wasn't horrible. I mean, you see it coming from the data that's stored in a droid, to the cantina scene, to the kind of desert orphan who's wanting a better life, to even meeting Han Solo when they do, to escape in the Millennium Falcon. There's a bunch of different things. The only thing that really irks me is the one thing I alluded to on the last topic, is that no, this new weapon isn't a Death Star, because a Death Star only kills one planet. So what would be more dangerous? One that kills 10! Like,
yes.
Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, what's going to be the next thing? It kills a whole star system. Like,
yes.
There's so many. Yeah, like, it doesn't have to be so, like, I don't know, grand scale for it to be important. Look at Empire. The ending of that film was very personal and very character driven. And if they wanted to do more with Han Solo and Kylo Ren, they could have really built it up to that. I think that would have been a much bigger ending that had less fireworks.
Yeah, I agree on that. And also another thing that concerned me was some characters, because of the frantic pace. And J.J. Abrams does like to direct films. The first Star Trek reboot was one of my favorite films of the past 15 years. And one of the things notable about it is how well it moved and how fast it moved. But sometimes you can go so fast that you leave some things out. And one of the things that I had, small issues I had with Star Wars, The Force Awakens, was that it moved too fast for some of the characters. Some of the side ancillary characters, as far as it's concerned, seem to get left by the wayside as far as their development is concerned. Obviously, they're going to be developed in further episodes, but still would have been nice to get to know them a little bit more. Your thoughts on that? Like Captain Phasma, I think, is probably the one that stands out to me the most.
Yeah, but because they've branded her, I know that she's going to be a stronger presence in the future. It's just evident. She obviously feels very slighted by the events too. With her role and all that. And I think she feels personally responsible for Finn's defection. So I think all those seeds are planted there. I just think that J.J. Abrams can make a movie so fast that he uses his speed as a Band-Aid to cover situations. I remember watching Star Trek Into Darkness, and unlike most people who watched, all 6 films, or at least the original trilogy going into this, I watched Abrams stuff to kind of wrap my head around where he might be going with this. Star Trek Into Darkness moves so fast that you at first glance, you don't see all the plot holes until the movie stops and your brain catches up and you start to think about it. And I think that happens with Star Wars here a little bit to its detriment. I think the biggest knock in terms of speed is we don't really get a full understanding of what the landscape is of the galaxy and how things have shifted and why people are in the position that they are in. I just posted on my Facebook, and maybe you can piggyback into the comments later, a big Q&A back and forth about the questions people had about Force Awakens and how the novelization clears some of that up, and how some of the books that are coming out that take place before the Force Awakens and the comic books, fill in some of those gaps. And it's just nice to see it all kind of a little bit neat and tidier. It helps my appreciation for the film, seeing it laid out like that, which makes me wonder why couldn't the film have laid something out a little bit more specifically.
The Slash film article?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. The 25 questions or whatever, that we had about Star Wars.
I'm going to post that on both the Google Hangouts and also as well on our 4 followers watching on Twitch. So we appreciate that. It's going to come up right now for you. So if you want to check that out.
Yeah, and the nice thing about that is it mainly just confirms or denies some of the things, like I said, going by the novelization. And it doesn't delve too much into fan theories, but it does kind of point out some questions people have and tries to speculate based on the evidence that exists, using both the shooting script and other story ideas that have been kind of bantered around in different interviews as well. So that's interesting.
One question that was asked was, where do you think the series goes from here?
To a toy shelf near you. Obviously, it's, where is Luke and what's Luke's role, and will he be the hero that's called to action that denies that? Will he come around? Are we going to be trying to pull Luke out of the mopey swamp, or is he going to understand what's going on? Is he going to be full of revenge because of what Kylo did to Han? Is he going to turn to the dark side?
It looks like he's hanging out on the islands there. He
needs some therapy. That's all I got to say. Luke's been on the islands for 7 years by himself. He probably felt the tremor in the Force between the 10 planets that exploded and one of his former best friends, and he probably feels the pain of his sister. There's a lot going on for Luke mentally, and I'm worried about how they're going to kind of showcase what happens. At this point, I really don't care what happens in Episode 8. They haven't left it on enough of a cliffhanger for us to find out. They answered the big question, where is Luke Skywalker? There's really no big questions I have. It's all the little questions like, did I understand that right, which happened in The Force Awakens? I guess the big question is, why does Rey know how to use the Force so quickly? Why does... is she a Skywalker? Will Kylo ever turn since he feels the light side being pulled to him? But it's not like any kind of major plot push, I would say. These are just kind of questions that'll get answered over the entire trilogy rather than just the next one.
Do you think they left enough for viewers to come back in the same amount, a similar amount of as far as the number of people going to the actual movie, or do you think there's going to be a huge drop off between now and Episode 8?
Typically, sequels drop about 20%, sometimes 25%. So I think you'll see 75% on the return. So if this made, call it 500 million, the next one will probably open to 400 million. And it's all dependent on the story that they want to advertise, though, and the direction they want to take it. I don't think it has anything to do with the backlash online. I think because Star Wars now exists in the internet age where the prequels really didn't in the same social media sense, people are going to complain about it no matter what. But I think there's an audience there. But because people now know what it is, less of those people will go back to maybe experience it.
We had a pretty good question come out from Bearable, who has, I think that's T19. He's asking if Finn may be actually a Sith. Now, he's thinking, it sounds crazy, but it goes against, the Jedi code and whatnot for him holding the actual lightsaber. Do you think there's something more to as far as Finn's character in that realm?
I mean, the stuff that I've read with JJ and even Kathleen Kennedy have said, the Force surrounds us. It goes above and beyond a bloodline. So you don't have to be a Skywalker to be either. I think any of us in the Star Wars galaxy that want to tap in to the Force, it's the thing that separates you going from Jedi or Sith are the decisions you make and the desires that you have. Anakin was on the fence. Luke felt on the fence at times too, just like they're showcasing Kylo Ren on the fence between the light and the dark half. So I don't think it's as simple as saying that this character is this or this character is that. I think, like for most of us, it's an ongoing battle with, some of the frustrations we deal with in day-to-day life. Sometimes we have to show restraint. Sometimes we give into that and we become a little hot-headed about things. But, it's about how we react and deal to that stuff. So does Finn have the ability to use the Force? I think in a broad scope, I think we all do, or everybody does in the Star Wars galaxy. Will he be a Force user is a little bit more complicated to say.
And he was also stating as far as it's not more about the lightsaber, but more about the love and the hatred as far as the dark and the light. And I know that was used quite a bit in the film as far as those type of metaphors are concerned, especially when the confrontation between the Solos exists.
I think Finn might get pushed over the edge as he learns more about his past. That's obviously something that's been left in the open, and I think that's where Captain Phasma is going to loop back around, since she was kind of in charge of his unit and was the one that said that he passed all the simulations as he was promoted from sanitation to stormtrooper. So I think that she's going to play a huge role in how Finn develops, and he might go off the edge. And I don't think it has anything to do with the ability to wave a lightsaber around or anything like that. But yeah, I think he could go off the edge easily.
And that's really what he was trying to say is that it was more about the dark side and the light side and about the hatred and love than just about why is he holding a lightsaber is concerned.
Yeah.
But
what do you think about this? This was an interesting thing for me to discover. They set up Rey as essentially the smuggler, scavenger, very capable, very tactile, very Han Solo, to the point that Han offers her a position. And then essentially they make her like a Force user and a Jedi. So they have managed to combine Luke and Han into one female presence. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, do you think?
I think it was a necessary thing because I think they looked at the characters themselves that they had created and realized that she is the only one that is built strongly enough as a character, in my opinion, that can encompass all those ideals, unless they bring someone new in episode 8 that can help her take away from that, and help her with that as a character. But she was written and played very strongly. My highest compliments to Daisy Ridley on her character, because I think she really did a fantastic job in the movie, and I think she's one of the main reasons why I want to say that Star Wars Force Awakens is a go see movie and is a lot of fun. Despite what we're saying as far as concerned with our ideals, we want to say that from my end, and I don't want to speak for you, Rob, but it is a fun movie to go see, and it is definitely a great 2 hours and 15 minutes. So
no, Rey's a great character, but I do kind of maybe question meshing together a Han Solo type and a Luke Skywalker type, just because you don't have to like the main character in Star Wars because there are other great characters that you can like. Like I've always liked Han Solo more than Luke Skywalker, but Luke is equally cool in his own right.
Yes.
Just like people will like Luke more, but they'll love Han as well.
Or they'll like Darth Vader or Boba Fett or what have you.
And right now, it feels like they've really boiled it all down to two characters. Essentially, Kylo Ren, because he's the big face of all the packaging, and they've really pushed him, and he's the Sith in this one. Not that they're using that name anymore, and they specifically addressed that in The Force Awakens. There's not called the Sith. That was once a name used to describe those that follow the dark side of the Force, which again is interesting. But you basically have Kylo Ren. Now that the film's over, you also have Rey. And that's the main oppositions that they seem to have set up. That's not to downplay Finn's role, but at this point, they just haven't pushed him as much as they might.
Do you see that as an issue going forward, that they haven't developed or they will not develop all those other characters well enough to...
It's a major issue. I mean, even as much as I want to like Poe, he's great, he's fun, he's energetic, he really lifts every scene that he's in, but he's very two-dimensional. I don't get like a vibe from him one way or another about his flaws or what his weaknesses are. There's just no development, and he's just very the same flavor every time we see him. And
comes in with the rah cheerleader type deal, and then boom, he's gone.
Yeah, and Rey, we definitely got a lot of different aspects of who she is, and same with Finn, but they never really pushed Finn's character enough for us to really grab hold. We just know that he doesn't like killing people, or the thought of killing someone really hurts him, which would, in my mind, say that he might not ever drift to the dark side unless he learns more about his past that pushes that revenge aspect. But there's just not enough to go on for Finn to care enough about him yet, despite the complications under the surface.
And one last thing as far as the concern before our final thoughts, before we head to the Game of the Year talk as far as it's concerned, Chewbacca. I know that was brought up as another question, and some great questions on our Twitch channel, and we appreciate it so much as far as you watching today. Yeah, Chewbacca. I thought he, for a time, he was well used, but in the end, after Han Solo's death, I understand that the sadness there, but I just thought he was just pushed aside as well as a character. Or your thoughts on Chewbacca as far as it's concerned?
Han dies, they come back to the Resistance, and he's celebrating with everybody. Well, meanwhile, Leia is like holding Rey in arms, and they've never met before. Because Rey wasn't on where the Resistance was, but Leia and Rey seemed to embrace understanding what had just been lost. But Chewie, did you not realize that Rey and Leia had never met? JJ's just moving too fast for people to care. They had never met, yet we get why they're embracing because of the loss of Han. But Chewie's off partying like he doesn't care about Leia all of a sudden. Like, no big deal. It's okay. And the fact that Han had never used his bowcaster before, like, what is that? What is that about? In the 30 years or whatever, he's never picked it up and realized how heavy it was or seen it in enough action.
Or what it can do.
Yeah. Chewie, like the droids, is a sounding board for the main character to kind of get things out and have exposition confirmed, unfortunately, in this. There are some moments where it feels like the mighty Chewbacca, like Jabba proclaims, but it's just few and far between, I think. Again, out with the old and in with the new.
Pretty much. And I don't see a great future in the next episodes. I'm sure he'll be sprinkled in there a little bit as far as the concern with 8 and 9, but I don't know.
You want to know the oddest thing? Like, speaking of things that happen so quickly, 3PO puts his head in frame and says, "You probably didn't recognize me because of my red arm."
Yes.
First of all, super, super clunky. It would have been way cooler to just leave that as a mystery. But at the end shot, as the Falcon takes off to go find Luke, he has the gold arm back. So not only is that line clunky, but it's irrelevant the next time we see him because he's waving at the Falcon with his gold arm.
And I believe the only way you find out exactly how he got the red arm in the first place is by reading the upcoming Star Wars comic. Is that correct?
And because he was hardly in this movie, I really don't care. And that's the other thing, right? The droids have been integral to every single film. They have been the window. And while BB-8 is front and center in this throughout the whole thing, and a great practical prop, a great character, really connected with them. I thought they did a lot with that guy. It was really disheartening to see R2 and 3PO put on a shelf until magically the plot needed R2 to wake up.
That's true. That's true. And it's kind of disappointing to see R2-D2's lack of involvement. There was a lot of lack of involvement. It focused around, and obviously
the camera was on the wrong side of the fence for me.
Yeah.
It would have been much cooler to see it on the other side. Like, why does BB-8 not know who R2 is? Obviously, 3PO does, because 3PO is talking to him. BB-8 has been with the Resistance for a while, because he's, Poe's droid. But he's never seen R2, because R2 has basically a bedsheet over him like he's already dead. He's in robotic coma. Nobody cares about him. He's on low power mode. Until the plot needs him to wake up. Mind you, I think in the next one, we'll find out that, Luke triggered him because things had got too far now that Han's dead. So Luke reached out with the Force, and my brain, like a lot of my friends, have written a bunch of things in with Luke being so far away that he's magically the architect behind the scenes,
the puppet master.
Yeah, Luke's connecting the dots for me for everything that doesn't make sense. And as much as, again, we keep saying we have issues with these small little things, definitely go see it. Definitely check it out. And you've probably seen it if you're listening to our spoiler-filled chat. I think it's a really good first step in a series of films that'll come out. It's like the pilot episode of Game of Thrones. I had a ton of questions about what the hell that show was. What is that? What is this place, Westeros, and all these different kingdoms? And, why is this guy basically casting off one of his son and abandoning him? And, he's giving wolves to his other kids and all this stuff. I didn't understand Game of Thrones at all until like the 4th episode when I could get into it. And that's because each episode really built off the last one and really paved and pushed the story and fleshed it out. And I think you're going to see a lot of that with this one. Or they're going to take the Jedi route and basically say, oh, well, this is because this has happened. The way in which, Obi-Wan says, I only lied to you from a certain point of view. We're going to get a lot of that, I think, possibly.
Fair enough. And I hope to get more interviews with some great staff members for GameSource and YourGameSource.com later this week. I'm also want to get their thoughts as far as Game of the Year is concerned as well. Which we reviewed many games this year, and a lot of them are contenders for the Game of the Year. But first off, being the man who has directed Nintendo Quest, who showed it to several theaters across the country, and actually in Canada and the UK as well this year, wanted to get your thoughts on the best Wii U 3DS games of this year, as we'll be posting soon. That hopefully everybody out there will get a chance to vote on soon, and we'll be mentioned more on our GameSource Facebook page how to do just that. But it seems to come down to, when you're talking about the few titles that are really up for grabs as far as the best Wii U 3DS game, seems to come down to Super Mario Maker, which you absolutely loved, Splatoon, also as well, Legend of Zelda, Triforce. And then also, even though our reviewers were still working on it quite handily, it did get released earlier this year in Japan, Xenoblade Chronicles X. Your thoughts as far as is concerned on the Wii U 3DS game of the year?
Well, not having too much exposure to the 3DS library, it's really hard for me to talk about that stuff. But as far as the Wii U titles, because they're so few and far between compared to their other counterparts at Microsoft and Sony, almost every title they released was great. I think the only disappointing title to the majority of people on the Wii U this year was maybe Kirby's Rainbow Curse.
Yeah.
I think everybody continued to see huge growth in Smash for all the different add-ons that they had with that. I think Mario Kart had a bunch of DLC that continued to delight people. Yoshi's Woolly World got huge props and reviews for an amazing, innovative platformer. It's still on my shelf, unfortunately, so I got to get to that. But for me, it's all about Splatoon and Mario Maker, and I love them equally, but both in different ways. Splatoon is just really fun. It's a nice family-friendly take on, the the deathmatch kind of sensibilities that we all loved, and it takes it in a fun direction that isn't so dark and so grim, and it's innovative and it's harmless, and it's still encouraging to play no matter how much you're getting splatted and painted. You never feel like you're getting destroyed or super camped out like you are in some of the other modern-day shooters. And Mario Maker is just a creative blessing for people that want to explore what they feel and their love for that series. You really can't go wrong. Xenoblades is on my radar. I just don't have the time for that. I'm trying to get through all the Tales stuff that has been released on PS4 and PS3 still, and the Tales announced another game in their series, I think today or like on Friday. So I got to get up to it, Gerald. I don't have enough time these days.
I know, with all the projects you're doing, and the fact that you also, and I appreciate you reviewing Crusader of the Lost Idols, which is available on our reviews page at yourgamesource.com. We truly appreciate you doing that.
Free-to-play game, too, yeah.
Yes, but if you had to choose one as far as the best Wii U game you played this year, 3DS Wii U game, that type deal, Nintendo platform game, what would you choose?
It's got to be Mario Maker. It's just overall so well-rounded between what you can do on your own and how you can interact with the community that it's just undeniable. Splatoon's fun, but there isn't enough to do on your own. You really require to play with other people to progress and constantly enjoy. And then even the depth of the gameplay could be criticized after a while. I know they keep unrolling new weapons and they keep, new fashion and outfits and different quirks and maps for Splatoon. But Mario Maker seems to be this infinite well of joy, both on the design side and on the play side. It's really remarkable, and it's a constant source of discussion for me and a few people online. And it's always amazing to see what people have created in their levels, and just be an observer, whether you're playing or creating. It's fun to sit back and take that third role and just watch people enjoy and create as well.
And last but not least, but overall for the game of the year for you, there's going to be a lot of choices for people to vote on out there, in no discernible order. The Witcher 3, Rocket League, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Until Dawn, Metal Gear Solid 5, Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner 2, Record Breaker, Undertale, Fallout 4.
I'm waiting for you to name a game I've played.
So
I haven't played any of those games.
Oh my goodness, indeed. There's some great candidates.
In fact, I've played more games on the most disappointing game of 2015 years list than I have on the ones that you're nominating for possible game of the year.
But what was the best game that you played this year? And Super Mario Maker, obviously, as well. And
honestly, I can tell you the game I've put the most hours into, and that would be Evolve, which is probably surprising for a lot of people. But again, you got to put yourself in my shoes. It's a game that I can pick up and put down and play 10 minutes at a time. And I love the constant hunt for the monster. I love that I can play with bots. I love that there's customization. I love the degree of challenge. I went for the season pass on it, which I never thought I'd do for a game. I like the DLC. I like the different modes that they've included. For me, I knew there was a lot of hype getting into it, and I'd love to see them take on licenses. So, it's like a Ghostbusters kind of skin over everything, or it's a Jurassic Park skin. But as the game exists, it works pretty well for me to pick up and put down and get past the faults. There's a nice degree of challenge with an in-and-out gameplay that really suits my lifestyle at the moment. So it's a casual, modern game that I can get into.
sort of like me with Battlefront. I never, I know it's also will be on our most disappointing list because it is a disappointment to a lot of people. But for me, it is one of those, like you said, just pick it up, I play it, and then I move on. I don't take anything out of it. I just I want to recreate, play. I love playing Walker Assault because I just love in that type of environment and recreating that environment. And then I just play for a half hour, 45 minutes, boom, I'm done, move on. And it doesn't really mean that much to me in depth or anything like that. And I can certainly see why a lot of people still have issues with that game entirely. But for me, it's a fun little jaunt every now and then, and there you go. Bigger games such as The Witcher 3 that I delved into, and Fallout 4, which I know a lot of our staff members have delved into as well. I know those will be big topics. Metal Gear Solid 5, I know that one's also going to be a key on the list as well. Just really great games. Rise of the Tomb Raider, which I know everybody who has Xbox One should try. It's definitely I know it did not sell as well as Microsoft and Square Enix want you to believe it did, but it did not. But it should not be forgotten as a great title this year as well. So a lot of great choices out there.
Yeah, speaking of those choices, I know you said you're going to include a poll for maybe the most disappointing game. Are you going to include a poll for the most anticipated game of 2016?
That is actually, yes, already up, and it's available on the page.
Where's that page?
Well, that's going to be it's on Facebook already, and if you go to the best video games of 2016, which I'm going to give you access to, I got to do that today, so you can post all the wonderful things going on there as well. The best video games of 2016, that poll is already up. The best video games of 2016 on Facebook. If you want to go ahead and go on there and vote, you can start voting on the most anticipated game of 2016. So that's already available. I'm hoping to get together with I've been talking back and forth with our friends from Retro City Games, and also as well with you, Rob, as far as it's concerned about those who like that page. As far as it's concerned, maybe possibly running a contest. I've offered, as far as my end, it's whatever we need to do to get this done. So I'm going to talk to more Retro City Games. Hopefully, I'll solidify that, and maybe hopefully as early as today, I'm going to stop by there and see what those two have to do. Doug and Nicole are great people. I know they're working with you on the upcoming box art, the documentary, and hopefully get that squared away as well. I know there's eager anticipation over a lot of people voting on the Game of the Year Awards from both our staff and fan bases. So definitely get this started this week. But obviously the talk was Star Wars, and but from our fan reaction out there that jumped up so high when we were talking about Star Wars and decided to check us out still. We appreciate it. Any last thoughts on well, actually a prediction from you for 2016, since we're on the most anticipated talk, the one gaming thing that you think you're going to see as far as it's concerned in 2016 that fans should take in?
The announcement of the NX not being what people expect it to be.
Ooh. And what do you think they expect it to be?
A successor to the Wii U, and I think it'll be more of a companion piece, or at least another device that works in tandem with it and the 3DS. I think it'll be like there'll be some overlap between what the NX does and the phase out of those consoles, but I don't think those consoles are going to phase out for the Wii U. I don't think will phase out for another 2 years minimum.
Fair enough. Do you think that new proposed controller that Nintendo patented earlier this month might have quite a bit to do with it?
It's hard to say. I mean, it looks gimmicky from the patent shots that I saw, the way that there's actually no buttons to press, that they're touchscreen stuff. I could never get into the cell games where the joystick was actually just part of the screen. Again, give me something tactile, give me something physical, not something that's sort of there. I want to have definite control over buttons and stuff, so I'm concerned about that. But I have equal concerns about PlayStation's plans for VR and what they hope to do with that and how quickly that might bust or bank.
Because at PlayStation, it is on both ends of the spectrum. It's either going to hit or it's going to crash.
There will be no middle ground. It'll either be a huge success or it'll be a painful death.
Exactly. Indeed. So that's going to do it for us for today. Stay tuned later this week. I will have hopefully Jay, Glenn from Gamercast. I'm hoping also as well to get Josh, Sam, and some other great people on the podcast to share their thoughts on Star Wars and also the game of the year as well. So for Rob McCallum, one more last time while we have some viewers left, one last time on how they can actually get a hold of the best documentary this year and one of the highest rated films. And I'm not just saying that to be saying that. I'm just saying it's because it's true. It's backed up when writing one of the highest rated films of this year, Nintendo Quest.
Easiest place is NintendoQuest.com. I think it's even on my lower third there.
Fair enough. Yes, it is.
There you go, NintendoQuest.com. Everything you need to know, the Power Tour web series, the film, and whatever format and whatever site you like, you can get to it there.
Fair enough indeed. So for Rob McCallum, director of the Nintendo Quest, this is Gerald, better known as Yes Elvis Lives. Check us out, yourgamesource.com, at GameSource on Twitter, GameSource on Facebook, and we really appreciate you watching, you just enjoying part of the podcast and listening to all the wonderful Star Wars spoilers. It's another beautiful holiday in paradise, and you have yourself a great day. We are coming via Google Hangouts. It is Game Source Podcast number 138, continued. This is Gerald, better known as Yes Elvis Lives, and I'm here today with two more awesome members of the Gamercast, and also a member and host of a galaxy far, far away. I've got, first off, Glenn Stanway here, one of the producers of Box Art, the documentary. And am I missing anything, Glenn?
I don't think you are. I am also an associate producer of Nintendo Quest, producer of the Nintendo Quest Gamercast with Jay and Rob, and generally all-around handsome fella who does podcast-related assorted things. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Oh,
good to be here.
Great to be on. Have you on the show, and of course we have the man who doesn't want to be called the star, the main protagonist, as I like to put it sometimes, of Nintendo Quest. One of the highest rated films of the year. As I said on the previous time we talked about this, that's no BS, that's no bull. It is just basically, if you want to go to NintendoQuest.com and read the library full of great reviews that Rob McCallum has posted, it is Nintendo Quest. It is available on Vimeo with extra bonus features. It is also available on iTunes and Amazon.com. It is Jay Bartlett, who also hosts a Galaxy Far, Far Away podcast and is also one of the great hosts of Gamercast.
Hello, my friends. How are things in Las Vegas?
Mild. 60 degrees right there. Nothing too cold, nothing too warm, no snow, no rain, no nothing. It's
That's good.
I was
really warm.
I was telling Gerald off air that we have pretty much as much snow as he does right now. It's very, very mild in this part of Canada this year, unseasonably so.
I'm good with that.
We need a little bit. We need the rain here more than anything, because it's so dry here in the desert. But
we got plenty of that.
There you go. Indeed, but we are here today to not just talk about the weather in various parts of Canada and in the great West Coast here of the United States, but we're here to talk about Star Wars: The Force Awakens. It is breaking virtually every box office record. It is also breaking, actually, when you're coming down to breaking the Monday record and the Tuesday record, and then you probably hear the Wednesday record, and it gets down to it's a very successful film. Hasn't even reached China as of yet, because I won't debut, I believe, until early next month, but is already going like gangbusters. It is already knocking on the door of 700 million, if I'm not mistaken. Getting close to it, indeed. It is a film that has just surpassed a lot of people's expectations. We reviewed it on our site, yourgamesource.com, on the In Case You Missed It page. So if you get a chance to watch that, check it out. But we are here today to talk some Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And I know, Jay, you host your own Star Wars-related podcast, one of these, well, actually the best Star Wars podcast on the air. And,
thanks.
And, well, speaking of that, your thoughts...
Good save, Gerald.
There you go. Your thoughts initially as you sat down, because you probably more than any other human being I know on the planet, because outside of the great collection that you have in Nintendo Quest that was outlined, if people got a chance to see it, you're kind of maybe a small Star Wars fans as well, and you knew this indie film was coming out. The small indie low budget film was coming out pretty soon on December 18th, but great anticipation. So what were your thoughts going in?
Ever since I saw the very first of the 3 major trailers, I felt secure. I felt safe with it. All the big Star Wars fans had the same kind of reaction where it's like, uh-oh, Mr. Star Trek has his hands on my baby. What's going to happen to it? But as soon as that very first shot with Finn popping up, I mean, I knew we were going to be okay. I mean, now when I talk to people, at work, or I talk to people on the street or at home or whatnot, it's not, have you seen it? It's how many times have you seen it?
Yeah.
And when are you going again, kind of thing. So, I mean, that's something that's very rare. I mean, I know a lot of people saw like the Avengers and stuff like that multiple times, but this is almost like you're guaranteed to at least go 2 or 3 times. Even casual Star Wars fans are going 2 or 3 times.
Glenn, what were your thoughts as you were heading into it? Because I know, like I said, you've on podcasts with Jay, you've talked a little bit here and there about the Star Wars lore with him. I've seen also on the Power Tour, which is now in episode 3, which is available if you want to check that out as well. 3 great episodes that are actually available for the behind scenes of Power Tour. I know you've talked personally to Jay about the Star Wars lore and your anticipation for that. So tell me your thoughts going in.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Star Wars fan. I am certainly not the Star Wars fan that Jay is. I don't think that's any mystery. I don't know that anybody is the Star Wars fan that Jay is. So for me, I was definitely excited to see the film, but I think more important to me than that was I knew this is going to be my first chance, and it was a very unique opportunity to get a chance to see a Star Wars film in a theater for the first time with Jay in the same theater. And that was something I was really, really excited for, just because I know how much it meant to Jay, and I was really looking forward to getting a chance to being able to sit, in pretty close proximity to him and kind of see his reactions and get a chance to talk to him when it was all still really, really fresh. I didn't really know what to expect from the film because I know J.J. Abrams obviously has a very different visual language than George Lucas does, and that's something that Rob and Jay and I have talked about on the podcast before. So I wasn't sure how much it was going to look like the Star Wars films we recognized. They haven't been openly promoting it as Episode 7. It's just Star Wars The Force Awakens. So there was a question in my mind as to whether or not there was even going to be an opening crawl. Like, how different were they going to make this film? How many wrenches were they going to kind of throw in the works that might be a little off-putting to old fans? But I was along for the ride right away. I mean, it felt, after that opening sequence on Jakku, it felt every bit a Star Wars film. It was like slipping into a nice, really well broken in pair of boots or something. It was comfortable and it felt like Star Wars. And I was along for the ride, and I lost track of how many times I found myself grinning like an idiot at something that was going on screen without even really noticing that I was doing it. So I was a happy camper, to say the least.
I want to touch on real quick as far as what Jay had talked about, as far as the animosity some had, as far as JJ being a Star Trek guy going into Star Wars. I will say, for me, and I mentioned this with Rob, that Star Trek, the movie, the reboot, was probably one of the best films of this modern era, of the past 15 years to me. And especially the way it started off is just truly incredible filmmaking, in my opinion. So I was not as apprehensive on it. I knew JJ would be able to put out a great product, and I believe he has. He's put out a very strong product. I know Rob and I talked about a lot of things that we'd like to have seen differently, or maybe some questions arise about it. But those are just a little things aside. Overall, to me, I've seen it twice now. It's just a lot of fun, and you go there and you enjoy it, and that's what the essence of movie making and movie watching should be about. Is bringing people back to the theaters, which is something that hasn't been said for a little while now. And Jay, the things that you get most from the film as far as it's concerned. What are your what when you were watching it? Obviously you enjoyed it so much, and you've said such great things about the film as a whole. What were you taking away so much about it as far as it's concerned, and your hopes for the future?
Well, I hope it brings people back to Star Wars. I know there's a lot of people that kind of gave up on it. I was not one of them. I kind of, I stuck through it. I don't call it the good and the bad. I call it the good, the good and the tough times, because not all Star Wars has been good. I took out of it, it was such a different vision from what the expanded universe had been laid out for me since the early 90s. In the early 90s, are we allowed to talk about spoilers or no?
Oh, hold on.
It's up to you.
Oh, absolutely. I've got it plastered, and I want to make sure everybody knows again, even though it says there at the top of the screen on our Twitch channel, and also we'll be posted on YouTube, that, and also if you're listening on audio MP3, it is spoilers. We are going to talk massive spoilers here. So if you have not seen the film, or if you don't want to know what's going on in the theaters in the movie as of yet, you might want to maybe turn down the volume a little bit until we talk later in the show about Game of the Year stuff. But yes, we are talking massive spoilers here. So I was going to get into that in a little bit. But yes, Jay, go right ahead on your thoughts. And because I know you had talked about previously your thoughts on the film, and as far as it's concerned. So I know you had a lot of great hopes in watching it, and your anticipation in it was just at such a high level.
Right away, and I can't speak enough about the intro scene, the village on Jakku, is maybe one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. Of course, the great Max von Sydow isn't in that scene for a very brief period of time. He plays Lor Santika, who is a disciple of the Church of the Force. He's not a Force-sensitive user, but he worships the ideals of the Jedi. He has a part of the map to give to Leia that leads to Luke Skywalker. So right away, I'm on board. That was part of the script that I had read about a year and a half ago, where it was this hunt for Luke. Everyone was trying to find Luke. And I thought that was one of the most brilliant ideas, that Luke has become almost like this myth. He's become this legend. No one's seen him for a long time. Does he exist still? Did he ever exist, kind of thing? And like I was saying, in the expanded universe, Luke goes on to create the new Jedi Order. Han becomes a great general. Him and Leia are married. They have 3 kids who are Force sensitive. The way Lawrence and JJ wrote it is very different, and I like it so much better. Luke has failed in his attempt to create the Jedi Order. It's fallen to one of his young apprentices, Ben Solo. Han and Leia have a kid, but they are no longer together because, again, the same character has fallen to the dark side. Han blames himself. Leia blames her. They separate. So everything that we've come to know from the expanded universe is kind of thrown out the window. And I don't think they did that intentionally. I think that's just the way that they wanted to tell the story. And I think it feels so right, especially at the end of the film when you see Luke. Luke's worn. He's battle worn. You can tell he's been through hell and back, and he's afraid. And I don't think they could have done a better job, to be honest, with the main story.
Glenn, your thoughts as far as the dynamic between the Solos and seeing as far as their despair as far as and depression in seeing their son, I guess, now embody the spirit that is the dark side.
Wow. That is a big question. I do like that with Han and Leia, we kind of got it. We got to have our cake and eat it too. They did get together, so I think anybody who anticipated that after the end of Return of the Jedi got a little bit of payoff. That we see that at some point at least they had a family and they were happy. So it's not complete misery and darkness, but I do think it gives us something that's a little bit meatier from a dramatic perspective to chew on, to have their son kind of be the impetus of all this kind of terrible stuff that's happening and has happened. I'm kind of curious about the timelines. I feel like Kylo Ren isn't old enough for him to have turned to the dark side very long ago. So I'm kind of curious to see how this unfolds in the sequels that follow. I'm really curious to see what the events were that sort of drove him in that direction. Like we know that it's very likely that Snoke manipulated him in some fashion, but I find it hard to believe there wasn't some sort of event or something that happened that sort of kicked that off or helped push him in that direction. And I'm really interested to hear a little bit more about that. I'm also curious if that's the sole reason that Luke decided to go into exile. I feel like there's probably more to it than that. And I'm kind of curious to get a sense of what Luke's character and what Luke's mindset is at this point in his life. And after having, as Jay said, tried to, follow this dream of rebuilding the Jedi Order and ultimately having failed at that, after having such, great success in sort of bringing, resurrecting the Jedi and kind of bringing his father back from the edge of dark place as well. So, no, I think it's a great dynamic, and I think it's really interesting to watch, and I think it makes those scenes between Han and Leia really hold a lot more weight than they might have otherwise done. I found myself getting really emotional at the first scene that Leia enters in and kind of talks to Han again for the first time, and Chewie sort of just soundlessly walks over and gives her a hug, and I found that like dialogue would have ruined that, but there's a lot of stuff that's happening without words there that I found really moving, and a lot of it's that subtext of all those things that you've learned as an audience member while you're watching the film already.
No, absolutely. Excellent points indeed. And do you think, as far as it's concerned, it seems like a natural that's where they're going to go from there as far as with Luke Skywalker's character in Episode 8 is him, you discovering more about what happened, a little bit of the backstory, more as far as the downfall of the Jedi Order that he was trying to build, and more on his thoughts on his conflict between, what he should be doing and what he is doing at the moment. Do you see more of that in Episode 8?
I think so. I mean, he's obviously failed into trying to build the new Jedi Order, so he's gone to find the first Jedi Temple to get some sort of spiritual realization. Who knows? But he's gone there for a reason. And I do love at the end of the film how, Rey is the quote-unquote hero, the Force user and such, but at the end of the film, she is giving his saber back to him. Like, we need you, Luke. Like, you have to come with us. Like, the whole time it's been built up where, even JJ said this is a passing of the torch kind of film. And that was kind of misleading because I don't believe it is. I believe Han was killed for a reason. And I believe that Luke isn't going to be taken out like that. I think Luke is here to stay, and Luke is still going to be the main hero. I really do think that.
Do you think that Han Solo's willingness to participate in the film was based solely off the fact that character gets killed off? Glenn, your thoughts?
I know Jay's gonna.
I know Rob and I have discussed that at length. That because for
Jay
years...
and I did too. Jay and I did too. We were talking the other night after recording a Gamercast episode, and I said to him that Han being killed off in the film wasn't a surprise to me at all. Like, I basically felt as soon as Harrison Ford agreed to do the film that it was a foregone conclusion that Han was a goner. And Jay kind of disputes that. And I know if you read some interviews with J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan, they'll dispute that as well. I think they feel like that's a decision they came to as they were writing the script, and I won't dispute that. But I don't think Harrison Ford's disdain for Star Wars is something that has gone unnoticed. I actually find it really refreshing that he was as much of a team player as he was when it came to promoting the film. He seemed really, really on board. But I don't know. I think it's very important to establish who Kylo Ren is and the conflicts that Kylo Ren is going through. And ultimately, I think the development of that character is worth the sacrifice that had to be made. And what I've been saying to people who are upset about it, I've had some friends who are really bummed out by it. I know Jay's had people posting comments on his Kylo Ren cosplay pictures, harassing him because he killed Han. And my response to that is like, do you really want to see one of the best characters in cinema die in his sleep in an old man's home? And the answer is no. You want to see him go down guns blazing, and I feel like that sacrifice is a fitting end to a character who really deserved it.
But in the end, that's his gimmick. That's what brought him to the table more than even his blaster ability or his flying ability or whatnot. It was his way he could always, at least in his mind, talk himself out of scenarios because he's has his character has that silver tongue. And be able to get him out of those situations. And he thought he could do it one more time here. Obviously in the movie, he could do it one more time here in that sense. Jay, you're shaking your head no.
I don't agree with that at all, actually. No. No, finish your point. That's cool.
No, because that's what he, his character had even said, I'll talk my way out of it. Because he thinks, Han Solo, to me, I always thought that was his best weapon, was the way he could talk people out of situations.
I'm just going to interject for 1 second, and all I'm going to say is I want to hear what Jay has to say too. I don't think you're completely off base, Gerald, but I think it really speaks more to the man that Han became through the course of the original trilogy, as opposed to the scoundrel we met in New Hope. It is his son, and there's a genuine desire to kind of heal some wounds, I think, in that action that he takes. But I'll let Jay chime in on that.
He did it for Leia, 100%. You can see it in his face when they're at the Resistance base there, and he keeps saying, our son is gone, and she's like, no, there's light in him. You have to go, and he's just kind of like, I have to do this kind of thing.
She did put that faith in him to do it because he was reluctant to do it, and I will agree with you that it was her insistence to try and reach out to Kylo Ren was the impetus of that. But I also believe that Han Solo's confidence in the way he can, communicate with people as far as it's concerned. Obviously, he feels. He's always felt, I guess, according, watching the movie, there was that scene early on as far as whether in the freighter where he felt that he could talk his way out of the situation. And I know that going in, he went with his son, that he could probably try and reach him as far as it's concerned once he got that impetus from Princess Leia, or General Leia, excuse me.
Yeah, I guess I don't think it was... I know you're not implying it was like a scoundrel kind of thing, like trying to.
But that's his best ability. That to me is his best ability, is as far as over the course of all the pictures, all the Star Wars films. That's the best trait that he has. Yes, he's a scoundrel. Yes, he's great at all the things he did as far as with his use of blasters, with the way he could fly the Millennium Falcon, and all the prior tricks he knew. But the best way he could always get himself out of situations was by trying to talk himself out of it.
Yeah, it was nice to see that. It was nice to see that again from Han, because I really lost interest in him by Return of the Jedi. I think Han lost all his character. So it's nice to see him kind of come back to a New Hope Han, where he is a scoundrel, and he owes Conja Club money, and he owes this guy money, and he's caught in the middle of it, and he lost the Falcon again, and he's just, he's a mess, right? He swindled everybody in the galaxy. Really nice to see that character come back.
Because you thought after all these years he would be well off and he'd be doing very well for himself with Leia and whatnot.
That's the way it was always written. And again, I'll say there was always something about the expanded universe that I was never fully invested in, because it wasn't officially written by George or whoever was in charge of Lucasfilm. So there was always a chance, like the origin of Boba Fett, that if George wanted to come forth with his own story, that would have been wiped out, and Boba Fett was wiped out. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I really did like how Han came to be his old self again. And I think everyone knew when he walked on that catwalk. And I think even Han knows that it's do or die, pretty much. You can just kind of tell.
Fair enough. Now, Glenn, as far as your thoughts on Rey, who I said previously with Rob, is a tremendously well-developed character. Daisy Ridley just did a tremendous job, and virtually the entire cast did. That was allowed to be able to expand themselves on the screen. Really did it just a tremendous job as far as it's concerned on screen. So all the performances were really, really solid that were able to expand on their characters. But your thoughts specifically on Rey, who, as far as it's concerned, looks like she's, as you said, carrying taking the torch and going forward as far as it's concerned.
I think the biggest compliment that I can give the movie in a lot of ways is that I care as much about the new characters as I cared about the returning ones. I thought they did a really, really great job of establishing those characters and make them really interesting and really entertaining. I think Rey's fantastic. I adore Rey. I think she's a great character. I'm really interested to see. I think obviously the really, really big lingering question after Force Awakens is who is Rey? What is Rey's backstory? Where did she come from? What is her parentage that she comes by these force powers that she has adapted to so quickly, or at least is finding some degree of control over so quickly? And I'm really interested to see the answers to that stuff. I think there's a generation of girls who are going to grow up watching this movie and idolizing Rey, and I think that's fantastic. I'm just blown away to see such an awesome, strong female presence in a film leading this ensemble cast. And I know Disney's taken a lot of flack from certain parties over the last year because they've done such a poor job of marketing their female characters in other franchises. There's no Black Widow merchandise out there for Avengers. Star Wars Rebels merchandise focuses largely on the male characters, and all I can say is they better get their act together with Rey, because I have a feeling that's going to really be a paradigm shift for them in that regard.
Jay, your thoughts as far as it's concerned on Rey? She's as Glenn said, just a strong female character, just awesome. I have $2 myself, and they really appreciated her efforts in the film. But your thoughts, and maybe on her, but also as well John Boyega, as far as the future for Finn is concerned as well.
Every single actor in this film, I thought, did such an incredible job, and they had such personality and character to them. I mean, I didn't even mind the humor. Like, John Boyega had a lot of humor to his character. I thought it was... What the... Are you eating?
Hungry. He's hungry as we're doing this talk.
Just got home from work. Got to fuel the tank.
I thought they both did fantastic jobs. I think JJ and Lawrence did a great job of kind of misguiding the audience, where you think Finn is going to be the Jedi. Finn is going to be the Force user, when in fact he has no Force powers whatsoever. And it turns out that Rey is in tune with the Force and turns out to be the one who topples Kylo Ren. So.
But he's able to use the lightsaber, which I thought, many had believed that was only a Force power.
That was cool. Yeah, I mean, he definitely was not good at it. I mean, he was using it like a sword, right? But he had no guidance with the Force or anything. So I love that scene with the shock stormtrooper there, that little fight they have. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. It's cool to see that. And when he goes against Kylo at the end, I mean, Kylo just wipes the floor with him, right? Obviously. But yeah, it was a cool little twist to have Rey be the one to come out on top.
Was it a surprise to you at all that Daisy Ridley's character was so developed her Force powers? Obviously she hasn't fully, expanded upon them, but as far as the fact that by the end of the movie she had gone from not knowing she even had Force powers to, being able to compete with Kylo Ren and actually come out victorious, at least for the short term, as far as in a battle with him. Glenn?
I can't explain why. Oh, sorry, Glenn, that was yours.
It's all right, man. I was just gonna say, and I'm sure Jay has some thoughts on this too, obviously. So I'll let him chime in too. But I think as Yoda taught us in the original trilogy, it's do or do not. There is no try. I think when you're aware of the Force, and if you're truly connected to it, it's not a matter of training. I think there is some degree of being able to use it innately. And I think she maybe didn't have the baggage to get past that maybe, say, Luke did in Empire when he was training and learning how to use his Jedi powers to their fullest. Aside from that, I love the fact that I love the notion that somebody can just pick up a lightsaber and use it. I've never understood the notion that only a Jedi could. I don't think you can use it well. Just as you wouldn't be able to use any other tool well if you weren't trained how to use it.
This is true.
But I don't think there's anything saying that somebody shouldn't be able to pick up and use it. As far as the fight with Kylo Ren goes, I think that's more of a comment on Kylo Ren's character than it is on Rey. We see throughout the movie that he's brash, he's emotional, he loses his temper really easily. He's obviously still very, very young. As I said, I don't get the impression that he's been a disciple of the dark side for a tremendously long time. So I think he's still learning a lot about himself as well. I think that's what's really, really interesting. We're not seeing Luke taking on Darth Vader, who's been in control of his powers for decades. You know, we're seeing two young people who are really still learning to use their powers, fighting each other.
And even Snoke said himself, Supreme Leader Snoke said, you know, bring him back to me to complete his training, so to speak, because you obviously see he still had a ways to go in his own training.
I think in a lot of ways, watching Kylo Ren is kind of like watching Darth Vader with training wheels almost. I don't mean that to be derogatory, but I have to feel like this is almost like these are the steps, these are the baby steps, these are the growing pains that Darth Vader almost certainly went through as he was adapting to his power in the dark side and the Emperor's tutelage that we never got to see. Only we get to see it now with a different character who's going through a lot of what I think must be some of the similar things. And I really love that notion of him fighting, you know, as opposed to kind of fighting against being turned to the dark side. He's almost fighting to keep the light out. I know Jay and I were talking about that the other night, and I think that's a really, really cool idea. But I'm sure Jay has some thoughts on that subject as well, so I'll turn it over to him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Jay, one of the things I wanted to add in there before I let you go ahead and speak on Kylo Ren, because I know you have such an affinity for the Kylo Ren characters. I think one of his greatest traits that he showed in the movie was his, like Glenn said, the conflict that he still even has, or at least had until he caused the demise of Han Solo, was that he was having this conflict between the light and dark side. And I think that, to me, just grew the character even more. And but your thoughts on Kylo Ren as far as his development and where you see it going forward for him?
I think he's about to get into a world of hurt with Snoke. I think Snoke is going to really damage him as far as just making him even more evil. I have no doubt that killing his father was, you know, that's kind of the final nail in the coffin. Like, if there's any kind of light left in Ben, that was it.
There's no turning back now at this point?
Save for maybe killing his mother. I mean, if Leia's got to go too. Because it seems to be his parents keep drawing him back, and he's feeling their love. And there's a beautiful moment at the end of the film when they're in the snow, and it's Finn and Rey and him, and he's like, it's just you and I now, and he's terrified looking, like he's scared. And it's almost like you can see the compassion, and then he starts to slam on his wound.
Because, with the one that Chewbacca shot at him, yes.
Yeah, he starts to slam on it, and blood starts to spray out. So he's getting the anger and the pain going. Because the light, I see the light when he's talking to them, that he feels the compassion. He's trying to shut that out. So it's really cool. It's something that we've never seen before in a Star Wars movie, where the light is corrupting. And again, there's that whole point of view thing, right, that Obi-Wan always talks about. I believe that Kylo Ren sees what Luke did to his grandfather is corruption. The Empire was order in the galaxy. Everything ran smoothly. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of systems that didn't approve of it, but it still ran like clockwork. And then Luke comes in and messes up everything, corrupts his father to the light side. That's really cool. And that's something, honestly, that I got to say I've never really thought about too much, that the light could be seen as a corruption as well. I loved his character from the beginning, but definitely, I mean, I like Adam Driver. I think he's great. And seeing him without the mask and his emotions, like Glenn said, he's very young. He's very full of passion. He's very arrogant and cocky. And his lightsaber skills aren't that great. So it's really cool to see him. Yeah, he's by far, besides Luke, he's by far my favorite character in Star Wars.
Well, he might be the most interesting character, and he's the character, to me at least, the one that you can just go in so many different directions going forward for the next two movies. I think he holds the most promise and the key for obviously the success to the movies, even more so than Rey or Finn or whatnot, because just like you said, because without there would be no great heroes unless you have an even greater or just as great villain in this case, and I believe it's up to him to carry those movies, the following 8 and 9, if he's allowed to live in 9, for those movies to be great going forward.
I mean, everything about the character is. It's just so interesting, down to his lightsaber, which originally everyone thought were cross guards to stop from, your hands getting cut off, which is not the case. They're vents, because his crystal is cracked. And this is only something a true Star Wars nerd would know. So his crystal is cracked. It doesn't form a straight beam of light. It's like a fiery beam with static. And that's what I believe, because it's just a shoddy job. He's not a full-fledged Jedi or into with his force power, so his lightsaber is really crappy. It's an ancient design. It's an old Republic design, also leading me to believe that Snoke is very old and ancient, possibly even older than Palpatine was.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. And Glenn, just some final takeaways that you have, and I'll get back to Jay as far as his as well, but just some final takeaways, because we're here on Game Source Podcast number 138. I'm here with Jay Bartlett and Glenn Stanway, both of the Gamercast, and also as well podcast A Galaxy Far, Far Away. But Glenn, some final thoughts that you want to take away, that you're taking away from Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and what your hopes are for the future on that.
I'm just thinking about Kylo's lightsaber based on what Jay was talking about, and yeah, he's not great with it, and I love how it reflects his personality, and it is big and it's heavy and it's kind of clumsy, and he's not especially delicate with it. It's like he uses it like a club almost, and I think that's really interesting, because I think that's such a great reflection of the character. But I'm so looking forward to seeing these characters again. All of them, the new ones, the old ones. It was great to be reminded of why I have such affection for all of these characters, but it was also great to be introduced to new ones that I care about equally as much, and I'm really, really interested to see where things go. I think if I have two criticisms about the movie that really stand out for me, one is I do think that Finn gets a bit shortchanged in terms of the moral decision that he makes. I think his decision to sort of turn away from the First Order is a little bit shortchanged. I think that's a very significant thing, and I hope that we get a chance to explore that a little bit more fully.
I would love to see
in the next couple of films.
I would love to see kind of like a Return of the King, the way the Return of the King started off with a backstory. As far as is concerned, I'd love to see the episode 8 start off with a little bit, maybe just 5-10 minutes of backstory of how he came to be in the First Order, something like that. But that might, tell a bit more, but
for sure. For sure. No, I would. I think it's a huge thing that he did, and I think the movie doesn't really get a chance, or for whatever reason doesn't choose to kind of pay as much attention to that as I think it deserves. So I'm curious to explore that a little bit more. The other one would be if there is something that everybody's saying about it, whether they mean it as a positive or a negative, this film adheres really, really closely to what's sort of been the established Star Wars, I don't know, formula, if you want to call it that. It feels a lot like one of the original Star Wars films, and it plays out a lot like New Hope. A lot of the story beats are almost beat for beat, just like New Hope. I know that that's probably a conscious decision, because they realized what a burden they had in terms of introducing this film to an audience of people, not only who's a new generation of Star Wars fans, but people like Jay and myself who grew up watching Star Wars. But I really, really hope that now that they've done that and they've helped establish this universe a little bit more, we can see some of these new filmmakers really get a chance to kind of put their own stamp on Star Wars and make it their own, to do something that's maybe a little bit more risky or a little bit more interesting, as opposed to being something that's designed to sort of be fan service or just kind of please crowds. I don't think it's a bad thing in this case at all, but I'm really intrigued to see if things get a little bit more daring as the series kind of moves on from here.
And I would agree with you wholeheartedly on that, because a lot criticisms have been thrown that way based off of the been there, seen that scenario. A lot of times that the plot sometimes adheres itself to of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And it's still a great film. It's still a lot of fun. Moves very fast. Sometimes a little bit too fast to develop some of the smaller characters, who I hope we'll be able to see more developed in future episodes. But as far as the whole, I think it was just a lot of fun. And like you said, Glenn, as long as 8 and 9 are able to go ahead and take more chances and branch off into a slightly different direction that the previous films have done, and people will stay more interested into that as a whole. And obviously with the Star Wars movies that are coming out on a year basis, the other ones such as Rogue One and the Han Solo biopic and whatnot, or those films can also help a lot. Those stories flesh out those backstories as well. Jay, some final thoughts on actually the Star Wars: The Force Awakens, as you now have taken in almost a week now of full Star Wars Force Awakens glory.
Yeah, I just want to say, thanks to JJ for making a wonderful film. But more importantly, I'd like to thank George Lucas for passing it on, because it could have stayed with him forever and there would have been no new Star Wars. So just want to say thanks to George. I know he's listening to me right now. So thanks for letting us experience new stories and letting the franchise live on past what he's going to do with it.
Absolutely. And I have high hopes for it as well. And I think it was just, in hindsight, we were all kind of worried as far as where the series would go once the announcement was made that Disney had acquired Lucasfilm. Obviously, there's still some entanglements with 20th Century Fox to go to. I know in 2020, almost all except for New Hope rights go to Disney as far as that's concerned. But I'm just glad to see the series going forward, and that a new generation of fans can actually take in Star Wars as their own, and not say, "Hey, that was my dad's or my mom's or my parents or grandparents, deal as far as watching the movie." They can take it in as their own as well and be part of the franchise just as much as previous audience as well. But we're also here today to talk some Game of the Year talk as well, and just want to let everybody know as well, if we have this great Facebook page that we just made, just went up with all the polls on the best video games of 2015. If you head on over to Facebook and go to facebook.com/best video games of 2015, it's right there for you. All the polls, your chance to shed your light on your ideas and your thoughts on the best video games of this year. And since we all of us like to deal with video games and love video games so much, heck, you guys were even part of a film that dealt with video games as one of the main subjects of the as far as it's concerned. The best video game documentary to come out in a long time, Nintendo Quest. Obviously one of the highest rated films of the year, as I said earlier as well. If you get a chance, check it out. But best video games of this year, and guys, your thoughts as far as some of the games that you tried. I know we talked about Battlefront previously, and I know you wanted to delve more into Fallout 4J, but your thoughts on some of the best this year. Have you had a chance to take in more and think more about some of the best games that you played this year?
Yes, I will say this has been a very, very busy year for myself, Mr. Stanway and Mr. McCallum, and I think as far as games go, there was a lot more of us filming about games and talking about games than there was actually playing a lot of these games. But I'll give a few honorable mentions there. I really enjoyed Arkham Knights. I played that.
As long as you're not playing it on the PC.
No. And I wish I had a copy of that now, because it's really it's worth something. But Arkham Knight I enjoyed. One I never got to play that I wanted was the Metal Gear game. Metal Gear 5 I never got to. The new Tomb Raider is absolutely fantastic. If anyone hasn't played that, unfortunately it got released the same day as Fallout 4, which was a boo-boo on Microsoft's part. So I don't know many people that have played the new Tomb Raider, but it's absolutely fantastic. Of course, Fallout, I don't need to say a whole lot about that. And Battlefront, I've really, really been enjoying as of late. So those are some of the few.
Glenn, yeah, your thoughts on some of the games that you played this year and some of the games that you think would be game of the year type material.
Wow, I have to say, I'm kind of in the same boat as Jay. It's ironic that we can spend as much time talking about video games and spending as much time promoting video games as we can, and yet get so little time to play them. There's so many releases I just didn't get a chance to play this year, either because of time or because of money or for whatever reason. By no means is it my game of the year, but I have to. I find myself forced yet again to tip my cap to the ongoing saga of Destiny. I find myself going back to that game again and again and again and again, and truthfully, it's probably less about the game and more about the community at this point. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think there's a really awesome community that's risen up around Destiny, and it makes that game a lot of fun to play. And credit where credit's due, Bungie really worked hard to make Taken King something that was going to be a really worthwhile successor to the original game and deliver on certainly at least some of the promises that vanilla Destiny, as we old timers call it, was supposed to have when it launched. There's so many games that I'm really excited about that I haven't had a chance to play. I have not had a chance to play Super Mario Maker yet. I haven't had a chance to play Witcher 3 yet. Those are both games that would probably be at the top of my list if I'd actually had a chance to play them. and by reputation, I know there's a lot to look forward to there. But again, that's a great example of where time and money just didn't come together to help me play that stuff. But I do have a title in mind.
Okay, absolutely. And I can tell you firsthand, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was a tremendous experience as far as it receiving any kudos as far as it's concerned. It's definitely warranted. And Rob can tell you for sure, because Rob did a tremendous review for us on yourgamesource.com on Super Mario Maker. Also Jeremiah as well. Both gave it extremely high scores. And it is part of our Game of the Year poll that you can be a part of, and you can voice your opinion on the like I said, Facebook. Best video game of 2015. You want to check it out is again the facebook.com best video games of 2015. You have all the polls right there in the various categories, from best game of the year to best Xbox One, best PlayStation 4, best PC games. So there's just so many things you can vote on, and we're trying to get together everything. Is formulating on hopefully doing a contest. So if you like our page, like that page, again it's facebook.com best video games of 2015. You like that page, we are trying to get together a contest so we can do a giveaway of some great stuff with our friends at obviously Gamercast, Galaxy Far Far Away, but also the folks from Nintendo Quest, which you guys are a part of course, and the great people Nicole and Doug at Retro City Games in Henderson, Nevada. I want to give them a great shout out because I was talking to them today. We're trying to finalize things as far as the contest is concerned, because we're really looking forward to having you share your opinion on the best video games of 2015. So I think that's going to do it today, because I know Glenn is still probably rather famished. I'm sure coming back from work and whatnot. So, but I just want to say to everybody out there, again, we're yourgamesource.com, GameSource on Facebook, and at GameSource on Twitter. But I want to also let you guys have your say as far as what to look forward to and what people out there should look forward to on all the great stuff that your guys are a part of. So, Glenn, again, just let us know what's going on with Glenn as far as, and what should people stay tuned to?
Well, as always, Gamercast is now a weekly format, so we post Gamercast for regular listeners every Thursday at noon Eastern. I say regular listeners because we do have a Patreon campaign at patreon.com/Gamercast. And if you help contribute to the campaign to help us continue to make the podcast and pay for hosting fees and all that other wonderful stuff and get new gear and the like, you do get a little bit earlier. Usually goes up Wednesday night, late in the evening for folks who are contributing on our end. And you get a longer episode and some extra bonus content as well. I don't know if I'm at liberty to talk about what's next for the Nintendo Quest crew. We spent a little bit of time talking about it on the podcast this week, so I may have to drop a little tease in there for people to follow. Jay and Rob and I all have the gears turning, but suffice it to say, we got some ideas, and we're kind of excited to see what comes of that. My recent life change is I am now making video games. I'm working in production capacity at a mobile developer based out of London, Ontario here called Tiny Titan Games. Our current game is Dash Quest, and you can find that on iOS and Android. It's an endless runner with RPG elements. We're really excited about that. So I'm really pumped to be able to use my creative juices in a slightly different way over there. So that's something that's been very, very exciting for me over these past couple of months as well. But yeah, that's Glenn's projects.
Fair enough. A lot on the table indeed. And, well, speaking of a lot on the table, it's been a great year for you, Jay. And obviously, just meeting you this year in person, in the flesh, was one of the great highlights, and being a part of all this pomp and circumstance was that the Las Vegas screening had to offer. I was just, again, it's one of the truly just awesome moments of my life as far as it's concerned, and greatest honors that I've had the privilege of doing as far as, hosting that for you guys is just such a great honor indeed. But Jay, what do you have going on down here, and as far as it's concerned, with all the great stuff you have going on with, well, Galaxy Far, Far Away and much more?
I'd like to say it was an honor to meet you, man, and to be on your show multiple times now. I'm a really big fan of it. So again, anytime, just look me up and I'm here. Galaxy Far, Far Away podcast, hosted by myself and my good buddy Josh Schmidt. We're on episode 4 now, just all things Star Wars. You can find us on Facebook at A Galaxy Far, Far Away. Nintendo Quest, Rob and I are in the midst of writing a sequel. Yeah, so there is stuff in development, as Glenn was mentioning. We have definitely some concrete ideas that we're trying to flush out. That is in the future, I can say that. The immediate future holds the NES game based on Nintendo Quest, which will start production soon. So we're really, really excited about that. It's going to be, like we talked about before, a Final Fantasy 1 kind of template. But again, we have to meet with the game developer and such to make sure that our imaginations aren't, bigger than what we can actually achieve in this game. So that's in the immediate future. And of course, Gamercast with three wise guys talking games, just shooting the breeze and having a great old time. And that's, of course, all that stuff can be found on NintendoQuest.com, and Facebook. It's Gamercast with Jay, Rob, and Glenn. So thanks again, my friend. I do appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. It's been a great pleasure indeed to have both of you on. You're always welcome on the show anytime you want to shoot the breeze on video games or Star Wars, especially with this is now going to be a yearly basis now. And, credit Disney for just, going all out as far as, taking out all stops as far as doing this on a yearly fashion. Some people may get tired of it, but for Star Wars fans, indeed, this will soon be a great way to experience indeed. So
I agree.
Because if you were a fan of the expanded universe and you were sad to see the expanded universe being pushed to the side, so to speak, that will be probably replaced here within the next 5-10 years, as far as with all the things that are going on in the new canon, because there's going to be so much more in the new canon going on as far as it's concerned. So
really quickly, too, I'm a big fan of what Disney did with the Marvel franchises, and how everything is tied together, kind of with the Avengers, all the way down to the TV shows, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
And they're talking about tying stuff in with Star Wars Rebels, to the spinoffs, to the Skywalker episodes. So, I'm all for it, man. I think they just run it fantastic. So I can't wait to see what's going on.
And I am as well. Glenn, your final thoughts, or?
Oh, wow. Just that I'm really excited to do this. It's really fun. I appreciate the invite to come and chat with you guys for a little bit. And I love podcasting. I'm always overjoyed to get a chance to do it with anybody I can. So always a pleasure to do that stuff. And I guess all I will say is it's been a really, really great 2015 for me, in large part due to Nintendo Quest and at least one of the guys on the other end of this video conferencing thing, and at least one other guy who's somewhere in the area you are in right now, Gerald. It's been a privilege to do this with these guys every week and to go out and get a chance to tour Nintendo Quest and do the Power Tour, which everybody's able to see in those streaming episodes that I've been posting monthly now. And I'm so grateful for it. It's been a great ride, and I love doing it. And I'm so appreciative of everybody who's been supporting us and watching us and listening to us and helping us kind of keep this train rolling. It's been quite a ride. So thanks, all the best, and happy holidays to everybody out there. And I hope you and yours have a wonderful holiday season, and look forward to more stuff.
Absolutely, and I do as well. And once again, if you are looking for a great podcast to follow, Gamercast is the deal. Also as well, Galaxy Far Far Away. Do make sure if you really want that extra bonus coverage, Patreon, be a part of it as far as the Gamercast is concerned. And of course,
your check's in the mail, Gerald.
No, just send it back. just keep it in house, because I know how much it is as far as running a site and all this other stuff. So believe me, I know as far as the costs are concerned all too well, especially when you're stuck with a bill when you don't expect it. But we won't go there. But and also as well, I do want to make sure that everybody again gets a chance to understand that Nintendo Quest is one of the best films, period, of this year. One of the best rated films of this year. And if you don't believe me, go to NintendoQuest.com and you can find out how to order it for yourself, and you'll be a believer as well. So for Jay Bartlett, Glenn Stanway, and
just want to say thanks again, brother. And it has been a great 2015. And I want to thank Rob too, who's not here. Rob, for coming up with such a great idea for Nintendo Quest, and we really can't wait to show you guys what we have in store for the sequel. So that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
And absolutely, big shout out to Rob, not only for being on the front end of this podcast in the audio version, as you will hear, but also as well, this all couldn't have been done as far as us being together on this podcast and us meeting and the whole community coming together without, your efforts, Glenn's efforts, and also Rob efforts as well, Retro City Games, and the whole 9 yards. We just really appreciate all you watching, all you listening. This is Gerald, better known as Yes Elvis Lives, along with Jay Bartlett and Glenn Stanway. We really, really, truly appreciate you watching, you listening. It's another beautiful holiday in paradise, and we wish you the merriest of Christmas and have.
Do you love games, breed games, and bleed games? Then this is the crew for you. If you are interested in editorial, podcasting, live events, and exclusive content, make sure to hit us up at info@yourgamesource.com and become part of a team that is dedicated to delivering all the greatest and latest in gaming news and content, all here at yourgamesource.com.